Let's bring him in. Sean McDonough, the great Sean McDonough, has the call for the Michigan Rutgers game this week. Sean, we play that. You're sitting here with all Michigan guys. I'm sure you've talked about that clip ad nauseum before. But what was going through your mind when you that was all unfolding?
Probably that it was the most unbelievable ending of any sporting event that I've ever done. As I said, unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And, I think you realized as it was happening, or maybe right after it was happening, that, it's going to be an ending that's remembered forever. And not just by Michigan and Michigan State people, but I have people come up to me all over the place all the time who have no connection to either school and can recite the call or tell me where they were when they were watching it. So it was unbelievable, and it was fun to be a part of it. You guys are much nicer than most Michigan people who mention that play. Most of the time they say, like, you were a part of one of the worst moments of my life. And I would say, if losing a football game was the worst part of your life, then you've had a pretty good life.
Right, give me that life.
Man,
that's a good run.
That's a heck of a line right back to it. But I get it, though, because I know there's a lot of Michigan State fans that are upset at Mike Tirico for how he called the Michigan State game in 2004. They think
Who caught 3 touchdowns in that game?
No, it's not about me. We were talking about the analysts. Great to have you on, Sean.
Thanks. It's great to be with you guys. I always say, don't kill the messenger, right? I didn't care who won that game. I have Michigan State people come up to me all the time. I had one guy come up to me in an airport and say, you got to listen to this. And he played his phone, and that call was basically his voicemail greeting on his phone. And I've had people send me T-shirts that have been produced up in East Lansing that have the whole call written out, on the front of the T-shirt. So, it's if it happened the other way around, it wouldn't have changed the call. I would have been every bit as interested in it, but we really don't care who wins or who loses.
Absolutely not. Talking to the great Sean McDonough.
Unless it's Syracuse.
Well,
now we're talking.
When the Cuse is in the house, oh my God.
Absolutely. On the call this week with Todd Blackledge for the Michigan Rutgers game. And Sean, this to us looks like a much different Michigan team than we've seen over the last couple of years. In your prep for this game, what have you seen out of the Michigan Wolverines? What do you expect to see this week in your conversations with Jim Harbaugh, perhaps this week in any sort of prep?
Yeah, I do think it's a different team. By the way, how is my camera work? I'm looking at this tiny little thing on my phone. I see a lamp and a...
It's perfect.
You're good.
Perfect.
You're good.
You are perfect,
Sean.
Sean. You are perfect.
We only see one chin.
It's not a flattering angle, but I think you're right. I think it is a different Michigan team. There's just a real palpable positive vibe and energy around them. I think the way they played these first 3 games, we talked to Josh Gaddis, and we're talking about, establishing an identity, being a running football team. He didn't like the word identity because, as he said, your identity could be that you're really lousy at something too. So it's not necessarily a positive, but I think what they are establishing here, the way they want to play and their ability to do it, has given them a confidence that they can continue to do this regardless of the opponent. And I think they can. I think this is a really, really good Michigan team that's going to have a special year.
Hey, Sean, I'm not going to be so much of a homer. I'm going to get out of the state of Michigan. I want to ask you about the landscape in college football, and this actually is something that Ryan has pointed out again and again and again, and I'm actually becoming a believer. What do you make of this being a year where everyone seems beatable? Like, you look at Oklahoma, they almost lose. You look at Alabama. Alabama doesn't look so mighty and powerful. Ohio State has lost. Their defense is atrocious. That's just my thoughts. Everyone in college football this season seems to be beatable. Like, it seems like the scales have finally tipped in every conference's favor. Everyone looks beatable. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I wasn't so sure I would have said that after we saw Alabama in their opening game. Our group had their game against Miami down there in Atlanta in the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic. And you thought, my goodness, how could they be anywhere near as good after they had, 6 guys taken in the first round or whatever it was, and one of the great offenses, maybe the best offense in the history of college football. But, they came right out rolling. Bryce Young looked as comfortable as he could possibly be from the first snap of that game, making his first start and taking over from Mac Jones. But And then I remember we were in Georgia last Saturday night, walking by the TV in the press box and seeing that Alabama was ahead of Florida. I think it was 21-3, and thinking, okay, yeah, they're going to roll them. So I was surprised when I came back later, and it was a really tight game. You have to give Florida a lot of credit for that. But I think you're right on. They're beatable. They're not as good as they were last year. I think they're a little better on defense. But they're probably not as good as they were last year. And Ohio State doesn't seem to be. Clemson definitely isn't. Georgia's legit. We had them last week. I think they're the best defensive team in the country. I can't imagine, based on what we saw last week, anybody plays defense better than they do. And their offense is better than it's been. JT Daniels is certainly a good enough quarterback, I think, to win a national championship with. They're a little undermanned right now at wide receiver, but they're going to get some guys back. So I think this might be the year they do it.
Talking to Sean McDonough, he's got the call of the Michigan Rutgers game on ABC this week, 3:30. Of course, voice of the Boston Red Sox, and now the lead voice of the NHL on ESPN. Sean,
about it?
I mean, look, we are
the Red Wings going a little bit. So
man, we just had D-Mac here a minute ago.
We work with Darren McCarty
Yep.
here. He'll be excited to talk to you.
Yep, that's exactly what we were talking about. Like we here in Detroit love hockey. We believe we are hockey town. Yeah. We are excited that the NHL is back on ESPN. How different is it to call an NHL game? I mean, you've called everything before. How different is it to call an NHL game as opposed to any other sport?
Well, it is different, and I think it is in some ways difficult, Ryan. The puck moves really fast. In a lot of these press boxes, you're a long way away from the ice, and it's hard to identify the players. And, we've done a couple of practice games, and, sometimes the names aren't all that easy to pronounce. I guess the best practice I ever had for that was in '98 when I was still at CBS. I did the Olympic hockey in Nagano, Japan. And when you're doing, China versus Russia women's hockey, you learn that the names better roll off your tongue. Or at least, as I said to Darren Pango, I was doing those games with him, John Davidson. Whatever I call them, just call them the same thing, because their parents aren't watching and nobody's going to know. So the hockey's great. I grew up in Boston. When Bobby Orr and the Big Bad Bruins were in their prime, every kid on my block wanted to be Bobby Orr. And so, I've loved hockey my whole life, and was hoping for the last 16 years that we'd get it back, and now we have. And I agree with you, Ryan. I think this is going to be great for the hockey fan and for the NHL. I think NBC did an excellent job, but, we have the platforms to give them much more exposure than they've had in recent years, and I think to help grow the fan base, because to me, hockey's never been better. The game is faster. I think the rules have contributed to that, but just the skill set of the players. And, I think the players are faster and more skilled than they've ever been.
Although you had that tremendous play call for the Michigan State game, which was still heartbreaking, that wasn't my first introduction to you, Sean. I want to read you something. You tell me, does it sound like something you remember? Nixon bunts, Timlin on it, throws to first. For the first time in history, the World Championship banner will fly north of the border. The Toronto Blue Jays are baseball's best in 1992. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, that was my first World Series for CBS, 1992.
You broke my heart.
That was quite a year, because in the playoffs that year, it was Game 7 of the National League Championship Series was the Sid Bream, Francisco Cabrera, Sid Bream scored.
Where were you when Sid slid?
6 inches, maybe. It was one of the great games, I think, in Major League Baseball history. MLB Network had a series, Baseball's Greatest Games, and I think they said that was the number 4 Major League game of all time. So I was lucky the 2 years that we had it, the baseball rights that I did it when I was at CBS with Tim McCarver. We had that year. Toronto
Joe Carter next
World
year.
Series, and then they won again in '93 on the Joe Carter home run, which was just the second time that the World Series had ever ended on a home run. So I thought, Braylon, you're going to ask me about one of the great football games I've ever done was Texas-Michigan in the Rose Bowl, which was a phenomenal game up and down the field, and won, I think, by Texas on a field goal with no time left or something like that. But an amazing game. It was like 37-35. I mean,
Yeah, 37-38. Yeah, I chose the other
You
one.
had a
We already had one
phenomenal
Michigan
game.
loss. We already had one. We already had one Michigan loss. But I'm born and raised in Detroit, and when my mom remarried, we moved to Lithonia, Georgia. So the Braves became my team. I'm talking watching regular season, postseason, and it was heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak for Bobby Cox. And I remember that play called live in '92, where I was only 9 years old, but it was a tough one. It was a tough one.
Sports fan extraordinaire.
I hate to say they underachieved. I mean, they were in the playoffs every year, but to only win one World Series with that cast seems like they probably didn't maximize it. But those were fun teams to cover. They were a good bunch of guys, too. The Greg Maddoxes and Smoltz and Tom Glavine and Chipper Jones and Mark
Steve
Buckey.
Avery.
Yeah, Steve Avery. Just a really good bunch of guys in addition to having some terrific teams.
Hey, Sean, it's Maz. Thanks again for coming on with us. Hey, I know you think baseball would be your favorite sport to call?
Do they hide you like in a
They do.
security
I'm in the
closet?
back. I'm in the back. You see me?
We have him in the back.
He's got a good view
I got a
over
lounge
there,
chair. I got a lounge chair.
I was worried about my background here in my hotel room.
Sean, you got to come visit us here. Lots of talent.
Like you're
Lady
about
Jane's
to
behind us.
rent out racquetball equipment at the Y. So I don't know what's going on there.
We have a studio in a place called Lady Jane's Haircuts for Men. So if you wanted to get your
I wouldn't
hair,
know much about any
I know, I understand
that.
I'm holding on to scraps, so I got nothing. But I want to talk to you just about baseball in general before I let you go, because I'm the baseball
Can I
junkie
comment
here.
first on your shirt?
I know. Go ahead. I'm sad.
No, as you guys know, I mean, one of the great human beings who's ever walked the planet is Chris Spielman. And if there's anybody
Amen.
who can help the Lions get back to get to where they want to be, it is my main man, C. Spiel. He is the absolute best. They don't come any him, and if it can be done just by sheer will and desire, never mind great football knowledge and all that stuff too, he'll get it done.
I always say it. He's my favorite Lion of all time, and that includes Barry Sanders. I love number 54, but baseball, who do you like?
I don't know a better person, and I don't say that lightly. I do not know a better person than Chris Spielman. By any standard you judge a person, whether it's by his faith or the way he treats his family. He was an unbelievable partner and friend to me and still is. Great teammate on TV. And, he's just the best. They don't come any better.
I know.
awesome.
We're glad to have him here, although he was pretty good in the booth with you. But we're happy to have him here.
Yes, he was. And so is Blackledge. They're a lot alike. I mean, they are so much alike that it's kind of scary sometimes.
Hey, you got Yankees Red Sox this weekend, too. Who do you like to win the whole World Series this year?
Wow. Tough to go against the Dodgers or the Giants. One of them is going to have to play in a one-game wild card, which is phenomenal, considering that they're both going to wind up with 100-plus wins. But, they've been the two best teams this year. Yeah, I think one of the great things about baseball, it seems that most of the teams now are either really good or really bad, and that's not a good thing. There's very little in the middle, and actually, I guess the Tigers would probably be one of the teams that's sort of in the middle, right? They're not bad, but
next year they'll be
they're
there.
not really good. But most of them are like the Baltimore Orioles or Washington now and Arizona. There's too many really, really bad teams. But I think most of the teams that are going to make it to the postseason would have a legitimate chance to win. Most of them have that frontline starting pitching that you need. I even think the Red Sox could do it. The way Chris Sales pitched and Nathan Eovaldi.
We lost Sean freezing up on baseball. We froze.
You had to ask the baseball
I
question.
know.
I knew it was
That's
coming.
the kill. Sorry, Sean.
You had to ask the baseball question. Oh, man,
that was a good one.
That was that's too bad we lost him. I mean, it's so gracious with his time. We certainly appreciate Sean McDonough. You're getting a big game when Sean McDonough's got the call. Michigan and Rutgers, 3:30 on ABC, and of course, we hope to see Sean here in Detroit at some point.
Definitely.
Cover
we will.
a Red Wings game
you will.
throughout the season.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah, that is great stuff there. Sean McDonough. We're going to take a break. Thanks to Sean McDonough. We'll watch him this weekend on ABC. He's got the call with Todd Blackledge and great stuff there on Chris Spielman, too. Sean McDonough, awesome stuff. Big fans of his. We're going to take a break. Come right back. Armani and Edwards.
Woodward Sports Network.